So today's video is actually a pretty interesting one for me personally. First off, the idea was sparked based on the discussion I had on my Discord server, which again was based off of a video made from one amongst many talking about players deranking after the Ana-nerf hit us on live. I will be referencing his video a bunch. He's done a great job analyzing and explaining what exactly was going on around that time on the ladder, and I highly recommend you do watch his video before continuing here, as it provides a lot of context and it is also good to have multiple opinions and or perspectives when going into a discussion. At any rate, today's topic evolves around the notion of boosted players, rank inflation in the higher end of the ladder, as also a little discourse in community perception and misconception. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. Kicking things off, I will not get around mentioning a video I made just a little while back which talks about community perception and the idea that in Season 3, Masters was essentially the new Diamond. In that video, I deliberately tried to analyze different viewpoints that come from an opposing perspective from what the community saw. And I mentioned this video because if you look at that and then OAM's video, it seems like they stand in direct opposition, almost contradicting each other based on the harsh stance both of these videos take. One of them is analyzing player behavior on ranked, highlighting misplays that were made because players were either not aware or did not get used to the Ana changes, who was a big enabler for the infamous tank meta. He continues to talk about the lack of finesse, so to speak, that a triple tank can't be quite around that time as opposed to a classic 2-2-2. And that I definitely agree with. Single player performance has just gotten that much more important with the end of this dreaded meta that was so very much focused on sustaining until a big team fight broke out. Meanwhile, my video talks about player improvement, a misconception of what it actually takes to get to a high rank, and the false idea that a player that reached a certain rank needs to be good at all the things that make what I would consider a truly skilled Overwatch player. Again, if you were putting these videos next to each other, it could look like I was sitting there saying it's all a big misunderstanding, whereas the opposition states with cold, hard facts that a lot of players got into a high rank based on a meta that required far less finesse and relied less on individual performance, who are now seeing SR drops since that meta is dead. Now, it's not like I wasn't aware of that fact when I made that video. As much as I kept highlighting that I despised the tank meta, I too was one of those players who took advantage of it. I was playing Ana at that time, that hero that enabled my teams to do said dreaded thing I hate. And as well, I did highlight that during this time period I didn't only stop having fun playing this hero, but also felt like it took far less skill to play her. All of this is a direct admission to me being essentially what players refer to as boosted. The reason I have always been open about that fact is because I have no interest in fooling people into thinking that I'm some sort of amazing player, primarily because I have no benefit from doing that, but also because I knew that community perception did go towards thinking that Masters Plus are supposed to be some sort of gods at the game, which my experience has proven to me was not at all the case. I learned a lot on my journey up the ranks, as I have talked about in my video My Road to Masters as a support main, and what I am primarily interested in sharing is a different perspective on not only approaching ranked matches but also on climbing the ladder. What you have to understand about my viewpoint as a content creator is that people will only take the bit of information out of your content that they are interested in, and even if I put all of my effort into trying to explain and debunk community misconceptions, I will get a backlash. If I try to explain why gold medals are not an indication for you deserving a high rank, I will get comments with people saying, but if I get 4 golds every game, that means I belong to Grandmaster. If I try to convince people to have fun when playing, I'm facing the negative stigmatization of that very term. I'm just trying to tell people to stop acting like their life depends on whether they win or not. Because them getting tilted over every misplay and getting toxic towards their team isn't only not helping them rank up, it does the exact opposite. Yet I'm dealing with comments of people claiming that I am promoting people troll picking on ranked, when if they were listening to what I said in that video, they'd know that this was not at all the case. So you have to understand my reasoning for actively refusing to talk about rank inflation in a video that was originally meant to put a less aggravated perspective into players' heads when it comes to their ranked games. I was merely putting possibilities on the table, all of which I would still argue could be valid. If I was to mention that players were legitimately reaching ranks in which they can't perform, the entire message of the video would have gotten lost. But this is something I would like to talk about here right now, so we're going to set up an example which we can work off of. Let's take James as an example player. James is your average run-of-the-mill Zenyatta main who occasionally picks up Mercy and Ana. In Season 2, James ended off around 3.3k and finds himself playing at 3.2k after his play some matches in Season 3. James sees a huge opportunity with the rise of the tank meta and promptly swaps his main from Zenyatta to Ana. Now in this particular meta, James does not need to be as much of a versatile player as other Ana players who played in a regular 2 to come. All James has to do is keeping his tanks alive. Big targets that are very hard to miss, and together with his not yet nerfed biotic grenade, he's having a really easy time enabling his team to do their typical tank meta thing. James eventually reaches a rank of 3.7k by the time the Ana-nerf drops on live. The meta shifts, players are still not used to the get out of jail free card that came with every biotic grenade from Ana, and were punished for too aggressive play and poor positioning. James finds himself dropping Ana as a main hero as he finds himself less effective in a comp that has more slender heroes that are harder to hit, such as a wall riding Lucio, running soldier, or bunny hopping Zarya, and goes back to Zenyatta. Now let's put James aside for a second and talk about his friend Bob. Bob is also a Zenyatta main who did the exact same thing that James did. Both these players are now in a position where they reach a rank that is reasonably higher from where they left off in Season 2. And here are a couple arguments, kind of as food for thought. One person could argue that both Bob and James are boosted players who deserve to be put back into Diamond. Another person could argue that Diamond players in general were simply boosted into Masters as a whole. And the third person would argue that Overwatch has been around long enough so that a good portion of Season 2 Diamonds actually acquired the skill to rank into Masters. Now back to James and Bob. James has been facing a lot of problems after the Ana-nerf. He's been getting a lot of hate from his teammates because he could not support the aggressive playstyle anymore with the lackluster healing boost, and that caused him to lose a bunch of matches. Sadly, James did not learn a lot on his way up to 3.7k. As he swaps back to Zenyatta, he finds himself constantly out of position in the new meta. He dies a lot, doesn't get his damage off, and overall just does not contribute as well as he would like. We can't exactly blame Jeff since the tank meta was not very representative for what he is facing now, a new meta that requires far more thought in positioning and more individual impact rather than relying on team fights alone. Bob, on the other hand, had no problem adapting to the new meta. It took him some time to get used to Ana, but he's doing alright and his Zenyatta is performing reasonably well too. At the end of Season 3, James had a skill rating of 3,400 while Bob ended off on 3,700. Question: do both of these players deserve to be ranked back in Diamond around 3.2k at the start of Season 4 since their rank was boosted due to the tank meta? Neither of them have improved significantly on a mechanical level. The main difference is that one of them was adaptive of the new meta and the other one wasn't. What's interesting about this whole scenario is that it's not as black and white as most of us would like it to be. Again, community perception goes towards celebrating mechanical prowess. If you don't deliver on that department, you supposedly don't deserve to be in a high rank. As I have stated on my previously referenced video, there's way more that goes into playing Overwatch well than mechanical skill alone. Next to Hero Master, we're also dealing with communication, ult economy, game sense, and a bunch more that players are not given enough credit for. All these things are, however, still vital for a player to be considered truly skillful. But still, not every player in high rank provides all these skill sets, reason being the strongly team-reliant nature of the game. A player who is only strong mechanically benefits from good leadership, a player who might not land as many shots but still aids his team as a good shot caller. So long that you, in solo queue, get teams that make up for the skill set that you don't have, you should have no trouble getting into high rank, provided that the things that you are good at help you perform in a high elo. If we're being entirely honest, for the vast majority of us on ladder, that means that ranked is more of a gamble than a true display of skill. And I know that many people don't like to hear that, but the truth of the matter states that most players do not have the time to invest into becoming good with the entire cast of heroes, adapting flawless game sense, and on top of that happen to be a pleasant person to communicate with effectively. So it is far more likely that, again, the vast majority of us are only really good at a few things because we decided to, maybe subconsciously, work on that rather than building an entirely new skill set from scratch. That's exactly what makes it so difficult to decide whether or not a player actually belongs into a high elo. It is very well possible that Bob's positioning and, let's say, opportunistic playstyle aids him well in sustaining his 3.7k skill rating even when he ends up in matches where he isn't as helpful due to his lack of mechanical skill. But who is to decide whether or not he deserves that skill rating? The majority of people who played with Bob and greatly benefit from his particular skill sets, or the unfortunate minority of people who would have needed someone else with different ones? I honestly think neither of them gets to decide that, because maybe James' problem was exactly that. Maybe James has the skills that could have helped him perform in Masters, but he was unfortunate to end up in a majority of matches where his skills were not what his team needed. And this is why I can't refer to ranked as anything but a gamble. It is a gamble where we can greatly improve our odds of winning by acquiring as many skill sets as possible from the large set of skills that make a good player. A player who did exactly that and refined all of his skills together is very likely to to be of benefit for more of his teams in solo queue, increasing his overall win percentage and reaching a high rank along the lines of Grandmaster. But realistically speaking, most people do not have an affinity for all these skill sets nor the time to work on them, so we're stuck with hoping that whoever the matchmaking system puts us together with direly needs that exact thing that we are good at. I apologize to a lot of you. I know that some of this might seem like very off-topic rambling rather than talking about the actual issue of rank inflation, but I feel like all this adds perspective to an issue that is not as black and white as people would like it to be. Determining skill in Overwatch is extremely difficult, writing an algorithm for that even more so. Just deciding that everyone who ended off in Diamond in Season 2 and then got to Masters in Season 3 should go back down to Diamond is discrediting players who genuinely improved throughout the season and kept adapting as much as possible with their given skill sets, such as Bob. It is always easy from a single player's perspective to say that someone else is bad, seemingly objectively, because they don't bring the skill sets that you need to win that given match. But chances are that this player that you're calling bad right now has some sort of skills that helped him get there to begin with. If those skills do aid most of his teams, he will remain there, and rightfully so. If they don't, he will drop, like James. Assessing which of these players is a true and who's a boosted Masters player is not easy, because there isn't a list of things you can check off for what a player needs to do to be considered a true Master. The absolute only thing that matters is that whatever they do at the end of the day needs to help them win their games. If that's just them swapping to a hero that stalls for time, them making great callouts and directing their team's ultimates, or them getting frags left, right and center. At the end of the day, if both of these players have something, even if it's just a couple things they can do at Masters level, the only entity that decides who gets to stay in Masters and who isn't is RNGesus. And that is the same entity that you get to blame for getting teammates that don't bring the stuff that you need. So just to end this off with some thoughts, do I think that players get boosters into Masters based on the rather simplistic or tank meta? Yes, for sure. But do I think that this is a massive problem that warrants a more harsh SR reset? No, not at all. In my opinion, all this is a giant RNG fest anyway. If a player truly doesn't belong into a certain division, they will undoubtedly fall out of it, provided they play the game often enough. And I firmly believe that for most of the circumstances where people go off on another player calling them boosted and saying they should derank, it is simply an unfortunate scenario in which you got put together with someone who does not complement your particular skill set. Players who adapt and provide skill sets that aid the majority of their teams will prevail, while players whose skills are painfully lacking for this elo will drop out of it very quickly. And honestly, if you think you're some sort of god at Overwatch who mastered every little aspect of the game, then you should think again and realize how much your teams are doing in enabling you to make those groundbreaking plays that you love posting on Reddit. If you really were that good, then you definitely would be a Grandmaster player already, meaning this whole Master rank discussion is completely irrelevant for you anyway. Ranked in solo queue is a massive RNG fest no matter how you look at it. If you want to get rid of the RNG, you'll have to queue in the 6-man and enjoy disgustingly long queue times. I know that we all wish for a checklist players have to work through before reaching our respective division, but the reality of it is that a game like Overwatch that just so heavily relies on the entire team and caters to such a wide audience with widely ranging levels of skill in all sorts of aspects of the game, that just isn't possible, and most of the time not even needed. Honestly, I know it's annoying, but we're all going to have to accept losses based on that and just move on with our lives. Our rank isn't as much of a prestigious badge of honor that validates our skill, but more of a rough indication of the types of players we should be paired up with to create as many balanced matches as possible. Some of us will be more lucky than others, and that simply can't be avoided. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I've put a lot of work into the script, and I hope that I could provide some more depth and perspective into this discussion. I know that I'm gonna eat shit for this in the comments, but a topic being controversial never stopped me from talking about it, and people disagreeing with me isn't exactly new either. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time. I had to ult the way, would have gotten deflected. Dog, listen, he was deflecting in my face. That was my only choice.
Okay.
I know how NA that looked, trust me.